5, 4, 3. Hello, everybody. Welcome back here to the Mobility Tech and Connectivity Show. It is January 8th, 2020. We are kicking off season 6. I'm Ryan Girardi. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're live or maybe watching the video replay. It's truly great to have you here. And like I said, we're kicking off 2020, season 6 here of the show. We launched the show 2 years ago. I have a very special guest joining us, Raphael Gindrat from Bestmile. We're going to be talking about fleet orchestration and mobility services, which his company does. So we'll bring Raphael on in just a few moments. Also have some news items to cover today. One funny story is ex-chief of Nissan, Carlos Ghosn, has escaped his, I don't want to say has escaped jail. He escaped his house arrest in Japan and headed to Lebanon. So we'll talk about that a little later in the show. CES just got started yesterday in Las Vegas. In fact, Raphael, our guest, is coming to us live from CES. So I have a couple items there related to that. And then to close things out, a little news bit on how streaming is hurting the planet. If you are new to the show, we do this live pretty much every Wednesday, 2:00 Central. It's streamed on our YouTube channel. It's recorded, and then it's featured on the AutoConverse podcast. So if you're a podcast listener, you can subscribe to AutoConverse and get the show there. It's a little bit more edited. I'm in a makeshift studio today, but hopefully everything checks out. It seems to be doing well so far. So as I had mentioned, we have Raphael coming on. Now, Bestmile empowers mobility providers to deploy, manage, and optimize autonomous and conventional driven fleets. And their cloud platform enables the intelligent operation and optimization of autonomous mobility services, managing fixed route and on-demand services, regardless of the vehicle type or brand. And their on-demand autonomous mobility services platform is being used daily in city centers on 4 different continents for both pedestrian areas and open roads. The company was incorporated in 2014, has global offices in San Francisco and Lausanne, Switzerland, which is where Raphael is from. Now, Raphael, if you want to start your camera, Raphael, he's a pioneer in the world of autonomous mobility. He led a project with the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne to test and operate one of its first autonomous vehicles in Europe. And he was actively involved in the European project City Mobile 2. And Raphael is now CEO and co-founder of Bestmile, which, as I explained, empowers providers to deploy, manage, and optimize autonomous fleet. So Raphael, let's go ahead and bring you on camera. Good afternoon. Great to have you here.
Good afternoon.
And as I mentioned, you're in Las Vegas today attending CES. It seems quiet where you are, so you must have found some private space, but you're here on day 2 at CES. You're not exhibiting, you're there to network and participate, but maybe give us a glimpse of what you're seeing there.
Well, it's a crazy event like each year. I think CES is becoming more and more a tech event. You see more and more tech companies, mobility companies, car maker, OEM, exhibiting some kind of cars or some kind of mobility solutions or technologies that goes inside the vehicle. So I think CES is becoming more and more aligned with what we do at Bestmile. So it's a great news for us, and we are using this event in order to reconnect or connect with existing customers or potential partners.
And you've been to CES in previous years, correct?
Yes, it's, I think, the 4th time we are attending CES.
Okay.
As a software company, we are not exhibiting because it's not really easy for us to show at a booth what we are building at Bestmile. But we have a meeting room, and it's a way for us to connect with existing customers, partners, leads, and additional opportunities. So it's a great event for us.
And for those that maybe not be familiar with CES, it used to be an acronym for the Consumer Electronics Show, but they actually dropped that because, like you said, it's more of a tech show than just electronics. But it's probably the largest in the world of its kind, for sure. And you know, a lot of our listeners are in the automotive space, and I think as you're probably seeing, a lot of automotive manufacturers now have large presence there at CES. Have you noticed any that stood out for you that are there?
Or you have the usual suspects. You have people like Mercedes, like the American players, for example, Ford. You have also some German car makers. Sony also just showcased yesterday a new car. So you see also more and more new players which were not building cars, but coming at CES to showcase additional solutions or additional technologies.
Yeah, all the technologies within the
Exactly.
vehicles
Mm.
and between the connectivity aspect of them.
Yes.
So let's get into your white. You did a white paper on what is fleet orchestration, how to plan and manage optimized mobility services. Um, give us an idea. I'll show the your website a little bit while you're talking, but maybe give us an idea of what you mean by fleet orchestration.
Yes. So for us, really, when you are a mobility company and you want to run a mobility services or a mobility solution, at the end of the day, you need two big type of technology in your ecosystem. You need on one side a fleet of vehicle, might be autonomous vehicle or human-driven vehicles. And on top of that, you need a platform deciding in real time which vehicle is doing what in the fleet and deciding what vehicles are doing in real time in an efficient way. And this is what we are building at Bestmile. So we are not building any kind of vehicle. We are not building any kind of technology that goes inside the vehicle. We are building a cloud-based ecosystem on top of the vehicle, enabling mobility companies to run efficient mobility solutions. And solution can be based on autonomous vehicle, like robotaxi, autonomous shuttle, but also human-driven fleets, where we are enabling solutions like ride-hailing, microtransit, and so on. So we are a pure B2B software provider. We don't operate ourselves, our own fleet. We see ourselves as an enabler, and our goal is to make sure our partners and customers are operating efficient mobility solutions.
And so, like you said, you're not building the vehicles; you're providing a cloud-based or orchestration platform, if you will, for things like autonomous shuttles, robo taxis. Now that includes ride hailing and even transit services as well.
Yes, yes. So today we have more or less 15 customers worldwide. Most of them today using our solution for small fleets of autonomous vehicle because, as you know, it's still an early stage market. But we are also applying our technology to more conventional mobility solutions using human drivers. And we are enabling solutions like ride-hailing or microtransit, which is mostly an on-demand shuttle services using human drivers.
Now, tell me, when you come to the United States where you are now, like I'm looking at something like on my screen here, this Easy Mile. I never see things like this, and I'm in Chicago, which is a metropolitan area. Is are services like this lagging in the US? I know there's cities like Austin, Texas, and Indianapolis that tout themselves as on the cutting edge, but is this something you'll see regularly in parts of Europe?
So in Europe, we start to see small fleets of such vehicles. But as of today, vehicles like that are designed to be deployed in places where you do not have a lot of traffic. So it's mostly pedestrian areas, private sites, campuses, might be communities. So as of today, the city center of a big city is not yet the best place to see vehicles like that. But I would say the technology is becoming better and better every month. And at some point, you will start to see solutions like that in big city centers around the globe, including United States.
When you think of the United States, is like, do you have US companies presently plugging into your dashboard now, or are you
Yes.
strictly on the European side?
No, we have also customers in the United States. We have two good examples in mind. On one side, we are enabling a new company running fleets of autonomous vehicles based in Florida, company called Beep. And as of today, Beep is targeting more private campuses, communities, and these kind of places where traffic is not, let's say, too crazy. And on the other side, we are enabling another company in Dallas called Alto. And Alto is a ride-hailing company competing with Uber and Lyft. It's a premium type of service. And unlike Uber and Lyft, Alto is owning the fleet and drivers are employees. So for Alto, the fleet efficiency is a really key criteria, and we are providing our technology to them in order to enable their business.
And Beep folks, so you know, we had Joe Moye on the program late last fall as well. So that's one of the companies that you had mentioned.
Exactly, it's a key partner for us.
Yeah, and their focus right now is in the Florida market.
Exactly, Florida low-speed shuttles. As of today, more on fixed routes, but later this year they want to transition to on-demand services. And the fleet they are currently running at Lake Nona should scale quite a lot this year.
So let's get a little bit technical. You're in your engineering background, and you saw obviously a vision or an opportunity that there was a growing demand, and that's why you started Bestmile almost 5-6 years ago now, correct?
6 years ago, yes, this
Yeah.
month.
And I think what you explained is you worked with a couple just individual players to really kind of build that concept, that prototype, and then you're really able to bring the company more into market. When I read about things like Bestmile, like here, transit operators, traditional transit agencies can easily add autonomous or human-driven services to expand and augment existing services. Can you give us some real-world examples? Because services is vague; it's nondescript.
Sure,
So,
sure, sure.
what are those services? What do they look like? What do they feel
Yeah,
like?
so today, if you look at big cities, you have conventional mobility solutions like metro or like bus lines. But these kind of solutions are either really expensive to build, like a metro network, or really expensive to operate because you have to have a lot of human drivers to run a bus network. And so usually, for example, in Berlin, in Europe, on average, each habitant of the city has to walk something like 600 meters in order to reach the first bus stop in the city, which is when you are young and it's summer and weather is pretty good, this kind of distance might not be an issue. But if you are a little bit older, if it's raining, if it's winter, if you have a lot of packages with you, it's a long distance. And at the end of the day, people are still using their private car because they don't want to use public transportation systems if they have to deal with this kind of inconvenience. And so the goal of, for example, fleets of autonomous vehicles is to start offering cheaper and more efficient mobility solutions and to have a denser network in a given city. So instead of walking half a mile to reach the first bus station, maybe you will have an autonomous vehicle picking you up in front of your home. And if you start to have mobility solutions like that in cities, so efficient and cheap, people will start to stop using their private car. And it's at the end of the day, one of the main goals of this industry is to offer solutions that are efficient and cheap, and it will enable people to stop using private cars in city centers around the globe.
Do you ever find that the push in industry for things like autonomous driving and electric, is it like, are we caught up in this trend or this idea that those things are better and more efficient or better for the environment? Or like, are we doing it just for the sake of doing it because it's new and exciting? I mean, what's the real, what do we, like you said, maybe it's to help cut back on congestion, right? So, is there evidence that these ideas are really transforming civilization and society in the way that we hear about in the rhetoric?
Sure, but I think if you look at all the big cities today around the globe, we have to acknowledge that the existing mobility solutions or mobility offering is a little bit broken. Way too many people are still using their private car. You have a lot of congestion, you have a lot of traffic. And at the end of the day, owning a private car is something pretty expensive. It's usually the second most expensive asset someone is going to own in his life after an apartment or a house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you are just using maybe 1 or 2 hours max a day. And so I think today the system is a little bit broken, and this is why you have so many startups, companies, car makers working on more efficient mobility solutions in order to provide alternatives, at least in big cities around the globe. And I think the benefits, you will have a lot of different types of benefits. On one side, safety, because for sure the goal of autonomous vehicle is to be safer than human drivers, and so to reduce the number of accidents. Most of these autonomous vehicles are going to be electric, so you will be able to reduce emissions. And at the end of the day, if you have a network of vehicles that is shared and operated in an efficient way, you will need a fairly small number of vehicles to run a big city. And by doing that, you will be able to reduce traffic.
To reduce the number of vehicles, you have to put more people in the same vehicles. Is that true? Is it?
Yeah, it's one of the key criteria for sure. What we call pooling or carpooling is one of the main actions you can do if you want to reduce the number of vehicles and the number of cars, which is, by the way, how most of the mobility solutions are working today. If you take a bus, if you take a train, if you take a metro, it's already a shared system. For sure, your private car most of the time is not shared. If you take a taxi, it's not shared either. But I think in big cities, you will see a variety of different types of solutions. You will see on one side cheaper solutions for travelers that are going to be shared, and you will still see premium solutions like a limousine, a cab, or a Uber, let's say black type of vehicle. And these kind of solutions are not going to be shared, but for sure it will less reduce traffic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I think of cities, you can definitely get more pooling and sharing.
For sure.
When you get outside into more, suburban and rural areas, the economies don't really work out that way. So
that's for sure.
I see the play there. You look at a city like Los Angeles. Have you been to Los Angeles?
Yes.
I mean,
it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's spread out over 100 miles if you think about it, and it's a freeway system, and it's known or not known for having it doesn't have a great public transit system.
No.
Right, and so everyone's forced to be in their cars. You look at the carpool lanes, and they're moving, but there's 6 lanes on a highway, and one of them's a carpool lane. So all the autonomous electric mobility in the world doesn't necessarily reduce the actual units that are out there. So how far are we from actually seeing a dent in a city like Los Angeles? Atlanta's in the same boat. Atlanta's a horrible place to be driving, in New York City.
Sure.
I mean, in your mind, with the companies you're working with on these more public transportation modes, do you expect to see a significant dent, in your lifetime or in the next 5 to 10 years? What does that look like?
Clearly 5 to 10 years, I think. We are a few years out of big deployments. But on the other side, I would like to say that already today, autonomous vehicles are a reality. So as we said before, you have companies like Beep and other players around the globe already deploying some small fleets of autonomous vehicles in some given areas. Again, it's not city centers. It's usually areas where you do not have a lot of traffic, and it's more campuses or private communities. You have players, for example, like Waymo, also deploying a fairly big fleet in Arizona. Here in Las Vegas, you have players like Aptiv also running a test fleet in collaboration with Lyft. So today, some use cases of autonomous vehicles are already a reality. The challenge is to have these vehicles deployed at larger scale, supporting more complex types of use cases, maybe in places where traffic is a little bit more chaotic, maybe where weather is not as good as Arizona or Las Vegas. So it's more a matter of use cases than a matter of does it exist, yes or no. It exists today, but over time we will see this technology covering more and more use cases.
Yeah, I feel like when we look at companies like what you're doing and the companies that you're working with, it's like saying the future is here. It's not the future anymore. It's right here in front of us. It's really fascinating. All right, final question, kind of an existential question for you, just a little fun. So, you know, the idea that you know what you know, and you know that there's things you don't know, right? It's almost like if you think of knowledge as a ball, it's like, okay, I know this much, and I
Yes.
know that I don't know this much, but then you don't know what you don't know. Right? So coming from yourself, you studied mobility technology in college. Now you're 6 years into having a mobility optimization company. You know a lot about the mobility industry. How much of this industry worldwide would you say you just don't know about? That's just not even on your radar, companies, technologies, or do you feel like you've really got a, I mean, you probably have a pulse on it all,
Mhm.
but how big of a space are we talking about here?
I think we have a, a good view of what is going on in Europe, United States. Um, Asia is a little bit harder, to be honest. A country like China is a black hole for us.
Okay.
It's really difficult to see what's going on in China. You see big companies starting from one day to another, and they have thousands of employees. For sure, reading a Chinese website is not that easy. So I think China is the best example of a huge market, which is difficult for us to assess.
Hmm.
But beside that, I think we have a fairly good overview of what's going on worldwide. But it's a fast-moving industry. You see a lot of players entering in this kind of field, trying to move from one position to another in the value chain, doing a lot of tests, a lot of bets. Maybe one example is Uber. Uber is trying a lot of stuff all around the globe, but maybe at some point Uber will settle to a given type of solution in the value chain, and it's maybe not the one they have today.
Sure. That's fair. It's moving fast is quite an understatement. I know that when I launched the AutoConverse blog, the tagline I used was the future of mobility. And this
Mhm.
was about 4 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe even, yeah, about 4 years ago. I called it the future of mobility. Last year, I dropped the word future out of it and just started referring to it as mobility technology and
Mhm.
connectivity because it doesn't seem like it's futuristic anymore.
At
You know?
CES this year, we see more and more flying drones or flying taxis.
Yeah.
It's clearly not yet deployed in any city worldwide, but might be done in a few years.
Yeah, and I hear robotaxis, flying robotaxis are all
Mm,
the rage right now at CES.
exactly. It's a big buzz this year. So usually CES is always a little bit too optimistic. When I was attending CES 4 to 5 years ago, robotaxi were announced for 2020, which is today. So,
Mhm.
so as I said before, it's already a reality. You have a few examples worldwide, like Waymo, Lyft, Active, and others. But I think we are not at the stage that people thought 3 or 4 years ago. So it's taking a little bit more time than expected. But it's coming, and I think it's going to be the same with flying robotaxi. Sooner than later, we will start to see a few deployments, maybe in cities like Singapore or Dubai.
Yeah, economies in the real world really test ideas. So
Mm.
we come out with these ideas, we put them in motion, and you know you have to have an economy behind it to really
Yeah.
make it drive. Um, uh, I just heard, I think it was today, that in Japan, and I don't remember if it was a company or the government, they're building a 172 acre city of the future. So they're actually going to prop up the
Yes.
city of the future. Are you privy to that? Have you heard about that development?
I saw that. I saw an article about it.
Yeah. And so that's going to be, it's like there's going to prop up a city of the future and put all these, you know, it's like a proving grounds, if you will,
Mhm.
for a lot of these futuristic technologies.
It's also a way to reduce the need of mobility. If you can redesign cities in a more efficient way, like maybe having people living closer to where they work and where they can find, for example, shops, you can also reduce the need of mobility. So it's maybe a way also to solve some part of the problem. But in any case, cities and mobility solutions are a really complex item, and you are not going to have one solution that is going to solve everything. And robotaxi or autonomous vehicle are only one part of a much larger solution and a much larger ecosystem.
Well, fascinating subject matter, to say the least. And it's fun to chit chat about these things with someone who's really entrenched in the technology of it all. So, Raphael Gindrat, everybody from Bestmile. Raphael, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, and enjoy your time at CES.
Thank you.
Take care. So there you go, folks. Raphael Gindrat at Bestmile, which provides mobility optimization services, if you will. He's at the CES Expo in Las Vegas. They're in day 2. And speaking of CES, Amazon's automotive offerings are expanding through Alexa Auto at CES. The tech giant is revealing several initiatives at CES centered on Alexa Auto, which is furthering the retail tech giant's quick and ambitious push into the automotive space, which I know is on a lot of people's minds. So on Monday, they announced an expanded vehicle integrations of its Alexa Auto voice assistant, new in-vehicle Alexa features, and partnerships on the Alexa Auto software development kit, and the international rollout of the Alexa-enabled Echo Auto device. The company's been growing its Alexa Auto experience over the past few years, and the voice assistant is available with several automaker brands and vehicles. But General Motors was the first automaker to announce it would fully integrate Alexa Auto. In September, GM said it would fully embed Alexa Auto in its vehicles for the 2018 model year and beyond. So today is International Earth Rotation Day. Let me, so French, here's in 1851, French physicist Leon Foucault, if I'm pronouncing that right, demonstrated how the Earth rotates by suspending a lead-filled brass ball from the top of the Pantheon in Paris. This is now known as the Foucault pendulum, and it showed that the plane of the swing of the pendulum rotated relative to the Earth's own rotation. What did I say? So today is the day that celebrates, that honors Earth's Rotation Day, 1851. That's when the pendulum was first demonstrated. So a couple other news items. So as I mentioned, Nissan's ex-chief Carlos Ghosn has fled Japan for Lebanon. What a fascinating story. Carlos Ghosn is Nissan's former boss. He traveled to Lebanon after fleeing Japan, where he faces a trial over allegations of financial misconduct. That came out, I think, around June or July of 2019. In a statement, Ghosn said he had not fled justice, but had escaped injustice and political persecution. His lawyer said he was dumbfounded by the news and that he had not recently spoken with his client. So I was reading up on this. It's pretty fascinating. He was on house arrest. He was able to get a copy of his French passport and somehow get himself to in Japan. He had orchestrated with, it seems, about 12 to 15 operatives, mostly ex-military operatives, to put him in a like an equipment case. So like if you were doing a live picture, a long black box, managed to get it through security, unchecked, and flew into directly into Lebanon. And so now he's made it. It's pretty fascinating, and he'll probably be coming out with some statements there. But I think the overall operation cost something like, was it 30 million, 3 million or $30 million? So pretty crazy, something to keep an eye out for. And finally, how streaming is hurting the planet. The data used to fuel our devices is damaging the environment at a pace that rivals the airline industry. That's what analysts have recently come out with. Streaming television and movies, as well as the coming demands of self-driving cars and other smart devices, will require huge amounts of electricity, and much of that comes from the servers they use, which need to be cooled. So computing alone could be using over a tenth of the global energy by 2030. This is according to calculations published in the International Journal of Green Technology. it's fascinating to think about. If you know anything about our smartphones, there are minerals that are used in the phones that have to be mined out of like rare earth minerals that have to be mined. So you have all these fascinating technologies and developments going on in our world. And if you think back to the Industrial Revolution, one thing that I think economists and innovators and governments weren't thinking about was the impact on the environment. We weren't thinking about those things, and now we have all these arguments about climate control. I'm sorry, climate change and global warming, but still today, right? With renewable energies and, like I just mentioned, with streaming and electric vehicles, we have all these new innovations and enhancements and developments, but what are the short term and the long term impacts that these things are having on the earth? So something to think about. Well, we're going to call it a wrap. Thanks again for tuning in to the Mobility Tech and Connectivity Show, where we explore people, ideas, how we are connected, and the way we get around. I'm Ryan Girardi. Once this live stream ends, the recording becomes unlisted. So you want to be subscribed to our YouTube channel so that you can access the recordings. You can also subscribe to the Auto Converse podcast. If you're subscribed to our website, autoconverse.com, you'll get email notifications like this that I'm showing on my screen, which give you information about each and upcoming show. Also gives you a link to the archive. There's a link to sign up for the show if you want to register for VIP access. You get all the insider exclusive access about the show as well. Be sure to check out our new swag shop. You get all sorts of things like mugs and nice cinch sacks. I have a nice carrying case from the shop. Lots of cool stuff, hoodies, all sorts of neat stuff. And we're giving away prizes to folks each month as well. So lots of cool stuff to look forward to. Thanks again to Raphael and the team at Bestmile, and shouts out to Erica Olson at Merit Mile for lining that up. We always appreciate our partners for bringing us great guests. And I'm Ryan Girardi. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. We'll see you next week right here, same time, same place. Take care.